Hey there, I'm Neil. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm the host of my new podcast, Pause and Rewind. I'll be chatting to changemakers, thought leaders, and role models who all share a common goal. They're striving to make the world a more inclusive place. And let's face it, we need it. Each guest has a unique story when it comes to doing their thing, and we often know who people are in the now. But how much do we really know about them? Pause and Rewind takes a moment to explore the experiences in my guest's life that led them to where and who they are now. Because everyone loves an origin story. We'll dive into tales, anecdotes, and what makes our guests tick. So, are you ready to pause and rewind? Hi, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Pause and Rewind. They say never meet your heroes, and to that I say bullshit. A couple of years ago, I had the pleasure of meeting Phyll Opoku-Gyimah, aka, as she's effectively known, Lady Phyll, or Dr. Lady Phyll, as I call her, and you'll find out more about that a little later. But Lady Phyll, it goes without saying, is an absolute icon. So it was an absolute privilege that I got to sit down and talk to her about her origin story. Um, I just love being in her company, whether it's seeing her at an event, seeing her on stage, owning the stage at UK Black Pride, or just getting a simple WhatsApp message from her. Um, she just radiates kindness and empathy and compassion and just oh, everything the world needs. So I hope you enjoy this episode. Thanks so much for listening and let me know what you think. Lady Phyll, welcome to Pause and Rewind. I can't even tell you how amazing it is to have you on the podcast.
I am so excited to be here with you, and thank you so much for inviting me.
Obviously, I'm really thrilled that you accepted. Um, Tell me, what does the world look like for Lady Phyll right now?
Wow, straight into a big question. Oh, what does the world look like for Lady Phyll right now? I
Dr.
guess
Lady Phyll, Dr. Lady Phyll.
Dr. Lady Phyll, right? I like that. So I guess that's a really huge question because there's so much for Lady Phyll right now that's about joy, intentionality, being really bold and brave and vibrant and being seen and heard for what she brings to the table, being excited by the difference that I see, the voice and agency of young queer people, young trans, non-binary, and gender non-conforming people. It feels great, but at the same time, it feels heavy because there's a reliance on you to do many different things, especially in this very turbulent world that we're living in right now. And I guess that heaviness is because of what we're seeing. Um, I'm going to say free Palestine, Congo, Sudan, the stuff that we're still witnessing and experiencing around Windrush and Grenfell and the racism that is like a weapon of mass destruction. So I'm between what feels like two cities, a tale of two cities, one which I'm learning to live my best life in excitement and joy with people, smiling, resting, or learning how to rest better. But then one on the other hand, which I'm like, how can we do more that weighs down on me quite heavy? So it looks like lots of things. I think that's the best way I can put it. But it looks like the fight for liberation, hope, and justice, and living in harmony in the best possible way that I can do it.
That's beautiful. On both sides of that coin, are fundamental to the work that you do, being able to tap into that queer joy, but also being able to stand there and say, I'm showing up. I know that I can make an impact.
Absolutely. And UK Black Pride brings me joy all the time.
It does.
We're in our 19th year. Whoever thought we would have even got here at that particular juncture? But we're here and we're queer, the little slogan that everyone says. When you think about the things that bring you joy, often we've gone through so much pain in order to understand what we don't want anymore in our lives, what we don't want to experience, or what we don't want others to experience. So you look for beacons of hope in people. Whether it's you and I sitting down having a conversation and just loving on each other and talking about hugs or talking about, you know, the kinds of partnerships and relationships or situationships we want, there's joy in that. And I think if you ever lose hope, then that's the point at which you're going to be experiencing so much pain. And I don't really like to use the word resilience because I think resilience places an undue pressure on people who are from marginalized or underrepresented communities to be resilient all the time. But there is something about the ways we are stronger together when we're lifting each other up.
Yes, collective resilience. When people talk about resilience, it's almost become a bit of a thing, a bit like toxic positivity, right?
Yeah.
That like I very much see those akin to each other. But collective resilience, there is so much joy, there's so much beauty to it, but there's so much power to it. That's what, I'm a huge fan of UK Black Pride, as you know, and I'm so excited about this year. I have a question for you, and I originally put this question to you a couple of years ago, and we've never actually got round to talking about
Oh my
it.
gosh, I'm nervous now. What
No,
is
so on the back of that bus, on the back of that bus to Essex, when UK Black Pride first came into the ether, and it was an idea. Looking back to that moment in time, did you ever think it'd be what it is now?
Oh my gosh. The back of that bus. Remember, there were two coaches at the time. Oh, there was, I can't help but to use the word excitement. There was so much excitement on that bus, and we were from all walks of life. And the fact that we have and had this shared commonality, it was just everything. And it wasn't until leaving to get back on the coach that I think I knew that this would definitely be something big for us. But I didn't know the scale and magnitude of what UK Black Pride would do for so many different communities. I just knew it would be big. It would be something that is like earmarked for us, but not at the scale it is now. Because when you start with 200 people and then you fast forward to like 2023, 2024, 2023, you've got 25,000 people that descend on a park. And I'm making it sound so easy, like it's just happened, but everything in between, there has never, ever been a time where UK Black Pride has happened easily. There's always been a struggle. There's always been a concern. There's always been something which has tried to hinder us from being successful and being in our truth. But yeah, I love that question. So no, I didn't know it was going to be as big as it is, but I always knew when we were walking back to that bus that it's going to be something special for us.
And isn't it just? And now CEO, and huge congratulations. I know I've said it before, but
So
huge
much.
congrats. Well, thank you for joining me for Pause and Rewind. I'm so excited to press pause and rewind on your origin story and find out about little Phyll. So, with that in mind, Lady Phyll, are you ready to pause and rewind?
I am ready to pause and rewind. Let's go.
Let's do it. Take me back. Tell me all about little Phyll.
So, little Phil was born in Islington. Um, she was she was a good child when she was, under the age of 5. I actually, not many people know, but I actually didn't speak until I was nearly 4. Um, and I went to speech therapy. I know you can't shut me up now. I went to therapy. They believed that something was wrong and they used the word mute. I don't use that word, but that was the word back, talking 45, 46 years ago. Um, and the reason why I didn't speak is because in my household, and back then you had lots of family that lived in like a 2-bedroom flat because it was more affordable to have families and have close-knit families together. We had my dad's language. My mum speaks 3 languages, which there's Twi, there's Fanti, there's Ewe, there's Gar. Then my auntie, who was from the Ivory Coast, who spoke French. And then my uncle, who came over, who spoke German, to his wife, who is married to Auntie Heidi. And then, of course, there was English. Now, if you know, children pick up the dominating language. So a Chinese child will speak Chinese if that's the language. A French child will speak French. I couldn't actually differentiate what was the dominating language, so I stayed silent as a child. All that time, I didn't say anything. I may have nodded, I may have like said yes or no with my head, but I didn't say anything. So I was somebody that just held lots in. I'd look at books, I'd look at colors. They tried everything. This is what a butterfly looked like. But I spoke when they realized that they were going to speak English. But just to sort of round that little Phil up, I thought I was the only child for a long time, but there's something that African parents do is that when they have their children back home and they come to the UK, US, or wherever it may be, you leave your children behind in order to secure good housing and a job and, education if that's what you can access. So when my siblings came over, I must have been about like 9, 8 or 9, I was horrified, absolutely horrified, because all of a sudden I had to share my space. But if we fast forward to the little Phil that you may want to know, which is much more about how did I get to be who I am? I think I've always known that I was different from other children. We were farmed out, shipped out to Hertfordshire. We were the first Black family in Hertfordshire. I went to a school which I was the only Black child there for 3.5 years. That within itself was traumatic because I was bullied and picked on. They would make jokes about how dark my skin is and why God hadn't finished painting me because the colors of my palms were white. My parents, my mother especially, wore African attire, so they would laugh at that. And I think I had a sense of embarrassment. And now I absolutely love talking about being African and coming from a long line of warriors. It wasn't until being 11 years old that I went to a place in Enfield Town, which was the headquarters for the BNP, the British National Party. And Enfield Town was renowned for being racist,
Mm.
as was Waltham Cross, Hertfordshire. And there was a march going on as I was heading with my friend Hayley to go to the townhouse, which was an old townhouse where you learned how to do ballet, tap, jazz, and hip hop and urban, so to speak, in inverted commas, dance. And this woman said, if I was you, I would wait in that shop front. She was like probably about 65, 70, pulling a tartan trolley along. And she told me specifically, not Haley, to wait in that shop front because the people coming down the road don't like my sort. And I'll never forget that. I speak about it all the time.
Mm.
When I went home, I mean, of course, we saw the march, big burly guys, DMs, bomber jackets, swastikas. When I went home and told my parents, of course, I got into trouble for going out. But it was then that my mum and dad had to have that really hard conversation with me about what racism is. And their view and their take on it was completely heartbreaking because they came to the UK at a time where it was no dogs, no Irish, no blacks. And the only people that would house us was like the Jewish people in Stamford Hill and so forth. And I remember saying to myself, I don't want to be different, but I want to understand. And all I then did was go to the library and read so many books, read up about Marcus Garvey, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X. I then, as we go fast forward, I started learning about bell hooks, Asata Shakur, and then, of course, Audre Lorde. She came, her reading and my understanding of her work came much later when I was exploring who I was or trying to understand who I was. So if we want to fast forward and do pause me because
No, I'm
I can
captivated.
I can talk for ages, but if we fast forward to a point where, I then became a young mother. I have the most amazing daughter who still gets on my nerves, but she's amazing. She's 29 now.
You have a beautiful relationship though.
Yeah, she's my heartbeat and my backbone. And
Do you,
these are
do
two
you,
things you
do you
can't live.
see do you see a lot of you in her?
Oh my gosh, tons. I but I see even more bravery because I think that there's something so unapologetic about young people and the way they express themselves. She's vocal, she is steadfast, she is bold and very real and raw about what she sees that's wrong in the world, and she will say it without apology. Whereas I grew up with the strictest African Christian parents that, you know, I wanted to say things, but I did all of that through my writing and my reading. I knew something was different, even from school, but as a child, I love the way young people now know who they are or what their sexual orientation may be or how they wish to be affirmed in their gender or the fluidity of being non-binary. That sort of language and vernacular was not around for me or even people that came before me. So you don't really explore it. You just know something is different and there's an attraction to other women. And I just thought that's normal. You can see a woman and you can say, oh my gosh, she's so beautiful. But it felt like more than that.
Mm.
But coming from a Christian background, coming from a country that it's illegal and my parents will say it's sinful, you don't talk about that. And we also don't have anything in our language that describes lesbian and gay, bisexual, or even transgender unless it's derogatory.
Yeah, of course.
So I've done what most African children do. We conform to what society believes is right.
Yeah.
And I had the most beautiful daughter and was in what would seem be called a very toxic, volatile, violent relationship. I don't often, because I trust you and I feel safe with you, I don't often talk about this side of me because I don't want anyone to feel sorry for me. I want this to be an experience to know that actually it's shaped part of who I am, but it doesn't define who I am.
Absolutely.
Um, and yeah, I came out, I think 3 years, um, when my daughter was 3 years. old, and I told a group of friends. There was four of us, and I came back with only three friends because one of them said their religion, faith, and belief would not allow them to connect with me in this way because what I am doing is wrong, and they made it seem like it was a choice.
Mm,
Whereas I don't think anyone would choose to be beaten black and blue or to be discriminated or to be called names or to go into a soul destroying dark place when depression sinks in because you started unveiling the masks. But yeah, I came out and I guess I felt liberated, but what no one told me was if you do have children and your family that are around you that are supportive, the ones that are supportive, that the coming out journey for you is not the only thing that has to happen. Your daughter then has to come out, your siblings then have to come out about their lives and who is in it.
mm.
And I didn't take that necessarily into consideration because I want to be happy.
Of
Um,
course.
yeah, there was a journey of, I guess, some darkness, some very weighty conversations. There was a lack of understanding for me about how faith, religion could be reconciled with my sexual orientation. But then you start to meet people that are like you start to gravitate to different communities. You start to read even more. And, Audre Lorde, if I look over to my bookshelf and I'm like, yes,
Yes, you find belonging. You find belonging in the literature and the people that have come before you in your history, in your communities, and yeah.
absolutely.
Can we go
Absolutely.
back to those courageous conversations? I can imagine the conversation your parents had to have with you about what racism was, what it, their experiences of it, probably almost prepping you for what was to come. Did you have to have those conversations with your daughter, but on top of that, also conversations around sexuality?
Um, yes, because sexuality is something never spoken about when I was younger. So I wanted to. It wasn't just about prepping her, it's about the understanding of difference in the
Mm,
world that is beautiful, that is rich, that can be nourishing, can be so exhilarating and gorgeous to be around. But I think most Black parents or parents of color have to have a conversation with their children about racism or weave it into some sort of a conversation because we have to, as Black people, put on body armor every single day. We live in a world, riddled and fueled by white supremacy, and it's painful. So their take on what racism felt like and looked like and smelt like for them was really hard for me to stomach because I wasn't I wasn't from another country. I saw Great Britain as my country. And it wasn't really until then that I realized I am an African child who happens to be born in Great Britain, that I'm not going to be wanted. I'm also going to face issues around sexism and misogyny, and even now with a evolved language around misogynoir, which is a discrimination towards Black women. And we know that Black women are seen as lesser than, the stats don't lie. It tells it through workplaces and schools and hospitals and other sorts of
yeah,
institutions.
politics. Look at what Diane Abbott has faced recently.
Exactly. And, love her or loathe her, nobody deserves to go through that amount of vitriol when all she has done is stand up for what is right for 40 years
Yeah,
in Parliament
yeah,
as a Black woman that has had not enough backing, support, or love from both sides of the
yeah,
coin, so to speak.
absolutely. Well, I love her on this side. Absolute, like yourself, absolute icon. Um, how do you carry yourself and stand so strong against that backdrop?
Mm.
And because obviously you need to, I've just referred to you as an icon. I don't use that lightly. You are, and you are a role model and an inspiration for so many queer people out there, beyond queer people, but particularly kind of like our Black queer community. How do you stand against that backdrop and hold it so the
Mm.
way you do?
Well, firstly, let me just acknowledge and say thank you for seeing me in that light. I used to squirm and feel really uncomfortable when people say, "Oh, you're an icon," because it felt like there's more pressure to perform, to act, to be somebody for everyone. And that's often really hard and it feels lonely.
I can imagine, but I don't think you do perform for everyone. I think I've said this to you before. I think you stand in your grace, in your fierce grace and gentleness and compassion and empathy. But yeah, I would never describe you as someone that stands for everyone, but I think you stand for the people you want to stand for.
Yeah, maybe, I guess when my journey was starting out in discovering who I am, where I want to be, what's my purpose, what are the ancestors telling me, I wanted so much to be liked and to not upset the apple cart. So I was really careful about what I said. I kind of played Switzerland at certain points of sitting on the fence of if I say that, that's going to upset this group of people. And if I say this, then that group of people will get offended. So now, quite confidently, as near 50 in a couple of months, I can stand in my truth and be very, very clear. But the point to the answer to your question about how do I stand in my conviction and quite bold and brave is because I recognize those that have come before me. I recognize that I didn't just arrive here by myself. I recognize that there were other Black lesbians who were part of supporting gay men during the AIDS epidemic who lost loved ones and they were there cooking, cleaning, supporting and working with them. I recognize even before that I come from a long line of African warrior women in my family. One woman in particular, my grandmother, who I speak fondly of, who would never speak English to us, although she understood and spoke English. She was one of the very first women to build and take the lead in crafting out what a church would look like for all. And back then, women did not have that space and that place to hold spaces and to convene because it would go through chiefs and it would go through others. So I know for me, I stand very, very tall with my chest and I say things with meaning because I have a grandmother that was absolutely intentional about what she did every day and passed that to my mother, who in turn passed that to me. And hopefully it shows in what I've passed to my daughter.
So much. That's beautiful. Who is someone that you'd like to kind of say that has really shaped you the most?
Hmm. Oh, Neil, that's a hard question because there are so many people, of course, my ancestors, whether I know them or I don't, they guide me on a daily basis. You know, so many people from South Africa that have been through apartheid, even the women from the Egypt uprisings, today, the women of Palestine, my own mother and grandmother. But if I had to pinpoint, oof, I mean, you've got your Valerie Mason Johns, you've got your Veronica Mackenzie's, Yvonne Taylor. You've got so many, James Baldwin. Oh, so many. But if I had to, you can tell I'm trying to
You don't
think.
have to pick one. This sounds like there's so many people that have shaped Lady Phyll.
Yeah, I would say it's my daughter that has shaped me. She has been what I know I have to live for. When there have been dark times, you're responsible for this bundle of joy. And I also recognize that I'm fortunate as a, Black lesbian woman to have had a child. She is probably the person who has taught me the most about how different resilience can look and what resistance looks like and what being unapologetic looks like and what being vocal looks like, even if you're the one that's putting your head above the parapet and nobody else agrees with you. She's the one, I guess, who has propelled me into certain roles and spaces and places that I can channel that inner person that's always been fighting for liberation, but she's allowed it to come out more. So I would say my daughter.
I love that. I love that. Shout out K-Soul.
Yay! Oh, she's gonna love this. She's gonna love.
I bet she will. I love that. Was there a moment that perhaps felt like a failure that has been almost something that you look back and think, oh yeah, that wasn't such a failure for me?
If I'm honest, failures, I don't think I use that word as a matter of course in my vocab. I will always look at things through the lens of areas of improvement
Okay.
because if something is to fail, it means it's ended. You've lost the battle. And I believe in being who I am will always require me to reshape and rethink what the strategy is to move the goalposts certain times because the political climate doesn't lend itself to loving and supporting queer people or Black people or marginalized or underrepresented or our international community. So, whilst we have sometimes small wins and other things don't work out, I don't see it as a failure. I see it as how can we collectively think about reframing and reshaping it so that we can win?
Solid advice there. Final question for this segment. What are you most proud of to date?
So much. And of course, my my daughter, but I think this year has been, we're not even halfway through the year yet, but it's my birthday in November and I'm going to be 50. And the fact that I can say that I'm going to be half a century, I'm proud that I've managed to stay alive and reach this momentous moment and give thanks for it. So the whole of this year is my birthday, by the way. So I'm constantly celebrating.
Absolutely. I'm here for all that celebrating.
Actually, I want to give this to young people. I'm most proud of young people for continuing to have, I guess, intergenerational conversations with us that help me learn and help me grow and help me evolve with the languages and the language that they use that makes people feel seen and valued.
The House of Happiness is London's ultimate sober clubbing extravaganza. We're led and delivered but created for all, whether teetotal, sober curious, or just taking a booze snooze. We love a day rave, and on a Saturday afternoon you can expect banging house tunes, DJs on decks, dancers on podiums, and a fully stocked alcohol-free bar. flamboyant, bold, with a glitter station to boot. We're all about safe, inclusive fun, and we even have a pre-meet so that you can make new sober buddies before you hit the dance floor. Grab your tickets from Instagram now at House of Happiness Official, and we'll see you on the dance floor. Phil, are you ready for some quickfire questions?
Oh, so when we say quick fire, you want me to answer them bosh, bosh,
Pow,
bosh.
pow, pow.
All right, pow, pow, pow. Right. Okay,
Okay.
I'm ready.
What album, book, or movie has had a lasting impact on you? And I know that it might not be so quickfire.
Oh my gosh. Breaking the Curse of Willie Lynch Syndrome by Dr. Alvin Morrows. The album would be Prince, and especially Purple Rain, the song.
What a tune. What a tune. Have you got a movie as well?
Oh, movie would be, it's not that I liked it, but it had an impact on me. It was Roots.
Okay. Great selection there. What's a saying that you live by and one that you'd put in the bin?
The one I put in the bin is We Are Where We Are.
Oh, yeah, mine is it is what it is. And I had to do a lot of work to remove that from my vocab. Yeah, we are where we are. Yeah.
And the one that I say a lot is I'm here to love and hold you.
Oh, that's so beautiful. I definitely feel that whenever I talk to you, I feel that.
Yeah. And I
What
love
has been,
holding you.
oh, thank you. I love so much love. What has been the best adventure of your life so far?
No, I can't think of one. I guess let me say the journey and the expansive nature of UK Black Pride.
Yeah,
And being named and given a title and awarded from a nominated person named Neil, the title of doctor.
I mean, thank you. That's very kind. It was so beautiful to see you up there receiving that. It's
Yeah,
like it's genuinely one of the highlights of my life.
but you saw me, and I am forever grateful that you saw me. You
I
made
see.
my family so happy.
It was beautiful spending that day with you and your family. It's, I look back I look back at that regularly and yeah, it was one of the highlight of my life.
Oh my gosh. Now I'm getting emotional.
Oh,
Okay. Right.
okay. Next question then. What three words would you use to describe you and your origin story?
Oof. Three words. Intense, brave, and with purpose.
Oh, intense, brave, and with purpose.
Yeah, it's quick fire.
Yeah, I'm loving it. They came from the heart. They came from the heart. I love that. Let's fast forward a bit. What exciting things do you have coming up? And obviously, I'm going to give a shout out. UK Black Pride,
Yeah.
Sunday, 11th of August.
Sunday, 11th of August.
Bigger and better than ever, it's promised to be.
Yes.
Oh, I'm excited.
No, I can't let off all the secrets
Okay,
about
okay.
that. So, what do I have coming up? Oh, I've got some news that I can't share yet, but let's just say Lady Phyll is going to be thinking about accessible education.
Oh, okay. You heard it here first, peeps. Love that.
Yeah.
Lady Phil, what brings you joy?
Conversations like this. Um, People bring me joy. I've met the most amazing people all over the world, and hearing their stories and being given permission to be in their space, that brings me joy, absolute joy.
Absolutely. People. Professional question. What takeaways, practical takeaways, do you have for anyone listening to wanting to carve out a career or create a space in inclusion?
Oh my gosh, Neil, Can I be messy about this
Be
question?
messy. Let's mess it up.
So, look, I personally, I think everyone is now calling themselves a diversity and equality or a diversity and inclusion expert. And whilst that work is important, some have not even really taken the time to take a deep dive into how to be a better anti-racist, how to look at anti-racism, how to, look at what sexism and misogyny actually really mean. Some people can't even spell, and I not being rude, intersectionality when you want to be in that space. And they often use it as a buzzword or a synonym for diversity. If you are going to carve out and you're meaningful and intentional about wanting to work in this space, let's not say inclusion is a means to an end. Don't say, I do diversity and inclusion,
Mm.
because that makes it sound like it's going to be over once you've achieved something. It's a continual process of constantly including many voices. You can have a diverse room, and it doesn't mean it's inclusive
Yeah.
because of the intersections of how oppressions exist. So I would say one takeaway is to one, do your homework and really take some time to read books that you wouldn't historically have read. If you are white in the space of inclusion, really find out what white supremacy means. Find out how colonizing countries have played out and why we have particular laws in countries because of empire. Have difficult and uncomfortable conversations, not ones that skim the surface, because actually maybe some people or senior leaders might want you to just gloss over things. Be able to speak around the struggles that happen abroad, be able to talk about the lack of ban conversion therapy legislation that should protect trans people. If your work around diversity and inclusion is not rooted in solidarity, then you are not the person to work in that space. If you continue to feel that you know all that you need to know, then this space is not for you, because we evolve, we change, we grow, and we need to keep on learning, because the moment we stop learning means that we're no longer breathing. So I would say be real, be honest, be bold, be courageous about the conversations you need to have about inclusion, but make sure that all of this is used with the lens and the framework and the axis of intersectionality.
And solidarity, as you've just said.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. That's so powerful. Finally, last question. Do you have any words of wisdom or encouragement to help someone out there get to wherever they're going?
I know that this sounds cliche, but I now know that nobody should ever be alone. There are so many resources and tools, support groups, individuals out there that are there to hold and love on you, as I've said. And if I look back at my younger self as this young Black African child that never really liked her dark skin because she was bullied and picked on, absolutely loves myself today because of finding chosen family and finding tribe. You can do it too. And UK Black Pride is always, always there as a support to lift you, to hold you, to love on you, to work with you, to support you, to understand you, and to keep you protected in a certain type of way and to signpost you. So you're not going to be alone. And I hope that resonates and sits with people, that you don't need to go into a soul destroying dark place. And even if you are there, understand that there are people, some great people in this world, even though this world is on fire and the pendulum is swinging in so many different directions. There are so many amazing people like yourself who is doing the work, not through ego, not through any self-gratification, but doing it because of their genuine love for human beings.
Lady Phyll, thank you so much for trusting me with your story. I am so, so grateful for this time with you, and I cannot wait to see you soon. Thank you so much for being on Pause and Rewind.
Thank you so much for having me on Pause and Rewind, and keep on doing what you're doing. I love the way that stories are being told and amplified and all that you do, Neil.
Thank you. I've got so much love for you. I'll see you soon. Thank you. Wow, I can't even begin to tell you how much I absolutely loved that conversation and spending that time with Lady Phyll. Um, I mean, we spoke at the beginning about the balancing act that many of us are playing when you want to experience joy, be that queer joy or black joy or trans joy or, disabled joy, just joy in life, but then having all of the heavy shit that is going on around the world. As Lady Phil said, the world feels like it's on fire. Um, and having to balance those two things and take care of yourself and rest and tap into joy but also collective resilience and the importance of solidarity and how work around inclusion needs to be rooted in solidarity, allyship needs to be rooted in solidarity, and the work that she is doing and the difference she is making through her work with UK Black Pride, and we didn't touch on it, but the work she's done with Kaleidoscope Trust. It's just so beautiful to see how all of this is comes from her origin story, being that kid that experienced racism at a young age, but then threw herself into learning, um, and the way that little Phil shows up now, and her three words used to describe her origin story: intense, brave, and with purpose. Technically four words, but it's Lady Phyll, so we're going to give it to her. Absolutely loved the conversation. Phil, thank you so, so much for taking time to appear on Pause and Rewind. Um, Honestly, thank you so much for always, always reaching out with love and for seeing me. I am so grateful. Save the date, everyone. UK Black Pride, Sunday, the 11th of August. If you haven't been before, it is a phenomenal event. It really is special. So I hope to see you there. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Pause and Rewind. Please share with anyone you feel might be benefit from listening. There are so many moments in this for people to take stuff away from. Phil, thank you so much. All the love. Cheers, everyone.